I was in Paris this week for an interview with French President Emmanuel Macron. On Thursday and Friday, he hosted a summit bringing together dozens of world leaders and hundreds of other stakeholders to seek new ways of funding the fight against climate change and extreme poverty. We met on Friday morning on the sidelines of the summit, before the events of the Russian rebellion were known. Mr. President, pleasure to have you again.
Thank you for being here in Paris.
Let's talk about this conference, 55 heads of government, heads of state here, trying to get some kind of agreement about what to do about climate change, about debt relief, poverty reduction. Isn't the fundamental problem you face that in the wealthy countries of the world, the domestic politics right now does not allow for a massive expansion of aid? And you need a lot of money to solve the kind of problems you're talking about.
Look, I think this summit is a very important moment for at least two reasons, if I may say. The first one, geopolitics. There is a big risk of a global divide because of the war in Ukraine and the whole dynamic. And this divide is the West against the rest. And this narrative is pushed by some big countries, I would say, for several reasons. But listening to a lot of leaders during the past year, I was very upset by this narrative of double standard. And a lot of leaders in this world said to us, you have a lot of billions for Ukraine, but when the question is to fix poverty, climate change, climate vulnerability in our country, it takes years or decades to find a few millions. This is quite true. I think we are right to do what we are doing for Ukraine because we are fighting for international law, for our liberty and our principles, and for a country being aggressed. But let's be clear, we were not sufficiently efficient vis-à-vis the South and a lot of countries facing poverty and climate change at the same time. So we have to address this narrative of double standard, otherwise it will be used by some others to create an alternative multilateral order. New financial institutions, new global order, and to say World Bank, IMF, even United Nations are no more efficient to fix our big issues, let's create something else. This is the number one reason for me, this forum, gathering from the US to China, to South Africa, Brazil, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, the Europeans and so on, a lot of countries, very poor to very rich, to build together a new consensus. The second objective of this summit is precisely to fix a new consensus. Because we created our financial institutions in a world where more than half of this country didn't exist. They are not fairly represented. And at that time, the challenge was not at the magnitude they are facing. Poverty and inequality increased during the past few years, and COVID crisis plus food crisis now had a huge impact on poverty in a lot of this country. And climate change and biodiversity crisis have huge impact in these countries and impact for all of us, because we will never fix this issue if we don't address the issue vis-à-vis the emerging, the developing and poor countries. And this new consensus is precisely to fix with them this question, this nexus, poverty, biodiversity, climate, and to find new instruments and new mobilization. And we are designing this new consensus for people and planet around four principles, to be clear. Number one, nobody should be put in a situation to choose between poverty and biodiversity and climate. This is unacceptable morally, but this is bad for these countries and for us. Because a lot of these countries are absolute treasure for us in terms of biodiversity and absolutely key for our fight against CO2 emission. If they start deforesting or keep on deforesting, the impact for the whole planet is huge. So, principle number one, they have to fight together against poverty, climate change consequences, and for biodiversity. Second, we have to respect each country on its own path in order to fix this challenge. This is why this is much more a contract by country to be negotiated. That's a sort of role model to be implemented for everybody. Third, we need much more public money, much more investment from rich countries, much better utilization by IMF and World Bank, and I think here we signed a new roadmap for IMF and World Bank, better coordination, better leverage, more exposure, which is absolutely key, and this is a transformational moment. Better coordination with public development banks, and yesterday we set up the first political summit, finance in common, with all public development banks and multilateral institutions, from China to the US, the Europeans, the emerging, the Saudis, and so on. So more public financing. And fourth, we do need more private money to fix these issues in a lot of this country. And World Bank committed to have a leverage of at least 1. For $1 of public money, we have at least $1 of private money being invested. This is key. And this is why we are channeling all these liquidities on sovereign funds, asset managers, private equities, part of this world, to be channeled to these countries and this project. What do they need? They need first loss mechanism, new guarantees, new innovative financing in order to take the risks in these different countries. This is what we are fixing in this summit.